Good morning and welcome to Lattes and Leaders with Dr. Brad Johnson, best-selling author and accomplished public speaker specializing in education and educational leadership. I am your co-host, Jeremy Johnson, organizational psychology consultant specializing in career coaching, training, and development. Meet us here each week to discuss topics in education and leadership and meet with some of the top education talent and thought partners from across the globe. So grab your latte, sit back, and enjoy a relaxed conversation that will leave you informed and encouraged.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Lattes and Leaders, and we have a very special guest with us today, Dr. LaTonya Goffney from around Houston, Texas, I believe. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm just so excited to have you on finally. We've had some technical issues, but they're all resolved now, and I'm just excited to be able to spend some time with you today.
Oh, Brad, I'm excited about spending some time with you. I read your book, and I've been following you on social media for a long time, and so thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So I've done a little research on you. I know you've got all kinds of accolades and things that you can talk about, but would you start with kind of just telling a little bit about your educational journey to get you to the place that you are now?
Oh, it's crazy. I could almost pinch myself, the fact that I am on the podcast with Brad Johnson, extraordinary educator, amazing author, so well accomplished that I'm a guest on the podcast because there's nothing about my past that would have predicted that I would be able to have this opportunity. First generation college student, raised by my grandparents, and so school was where the magic happened for me. And so grateful for my pre-K 12 experience. I was just a country girl, small town America, rural America. And I had great teachers who believed in me, who encouraged me and inspired me. And consequently, I was the first person in my family to graduate and go to college. And so on Mondays in my current district, Aldine ISD, which is located in Houston, Texas, as you alluded to, but I went to Sam Houston State University. And so on Mondays, we have what's called College Wear Mondays. And so, of course, I'll forever be grateful for that experience because it truly changed not only my trajectory, but the trajectory of my for generations. And so that's the magic of communicate of not just communication, but education in general, is the fact that what we do has power to change the
Mm.
families. And so I know for sure because it changed mine. And so I had the good fortune to go to Sam Houston State University and get my bachelor's, and the rest is history. I went into education, and I have no regrets. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be able to serve our students, serve our families, serve our communities, and hopefully, as we have this conversation, you'll know in every position I've always strived to leave either a district or a department better than I found it.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your, so moving up, the teaching, you had a lot of influence. What about the leadership part? What do you feel like has helped you? Maybe some traits or qualities you have, or maybe some traits you saw in someone else that kind of inspired you to help you be so effective at each level of the way?
Listen, I was blessed to have some of the best mentors that you could even imagine. And the irony is, none of my mentors look like me. They're all males, and they're all white males. Honestly, and, my the interim superintendent in Cold Spring, Texas, where I was a teacher, his name was Dr. Billy Bowman, and he took an interest in me. He ended up serving as an interim in Cold Spring twice, and each time he would always tell me about how much talent I had, about the fact that keep leading and keep growing, and just always encourage me. And I just remember he was who I replaced when I did become superintendent in Cold Spring. And then, of course, Dr. Bob Smith, he was one of my professors at Sam Houston State University. And I'd already graduated from the program and was serving as a middle school principal, actually. You're not going to believe this, but I was serving as a middle school principal. I was actually preparing. I had been told by the interim suit that I just spoke of that I was going to be the high school principal in my hometown of Cold Spring, Texas. And Dr. Dr. Bob Smith, I'll never forget, he came by, he just random because I'd already graduated out of the program at Sam Houston, and he came by to see me, and I was on my way to a pep rally, and he said, hey, the superintendency is open here in Cold Spring, you should apply. And I was like, oh, Dr. Bob, I only got the certification just so I'll be able to use it in the future. I'm about to go be high school principal. I'm not ready. It's not my time yet. And he was like, oh, no, but you're ready. I said, well, let's pray about it, Dr. Bob. And he was like, while you're praying about it, go ahead and send me your letter of interest and your resume. And so the rest is history. Dr. Bob Smith believed. And so I think the number one advice I would give to any leader is to be a learner. I say all the time that leadership matters. And I also say that iron sharpens iron. And one thing I know for sure is having a good mentor as well as serving as a mentor. Those are two incredible different skills, but you certainly need it. Number one, you need the mentors because they are the ones who will push you when you need to be pushed. I was pushed by Dr. Billy Bowman. I was pushed by Dr. Bob Smith. I was pushed by other professors and other people who believed in me. But also, I was pulling too. Like, keep in mind that whatever position you're in, it's somebody's goal. Whatever
Mm.
position you're serving in, whether you're a paraprofessional, somebody has a goal of being a paraprofessional. If you are a superintendent, somebody's goal is to be a superintendent because every single role is important. And so if you will help people to get into positions in which they can be successful and live their dreams or have reached their goals, there's another force that's going to pull you so that you can, of course, reach your goals. I just believe in the power of being mentored and serving as a mentor.
Oh, I really love that, especially the point you made because I'm one that's a big proponent of you choose what you're doing. It's a choice. You take ownership in it. But I've never thought
That's right.
about there's someone else wishing they were in that role. That's very powerful.
It is, and no matter what, think about it. Think about it. You were educated for many years, and I meet people all the time, and it's my dream. I've heard them say it. I've heard substitutes say it's my dream to be a para. Well, let's make that dream a reality. Or I've heard teachers say it's my dream to be an instructional coach. Well, let's make that dream a reality. What do we need to do? What's the preparation? And so I think that's the beauty of serving as a mentor, and also it also gives you the opportunity to reflect and think about how blessed you are to be in the position you're in. Because sometimes you can get so goal oriented where you're striving to be a soup or you're striving to be a principal, and you're not thanking. I call it thanking God. I'm married to a pastor. Excuse me. I'm from Texas.
That's all right. Yeah.
And I wouldn't be where I am without an education and salvation. So I don't want to make it about that. But I do believe in the power of prayer, and I do believe that we are the hands and feet of a higher power that's helping to make sure that we have more good in this world. And so I say that to say that it's really important that we are grateful for the positions that we get to serve in. And so sometimes when we're striving for the next position, we don't have that spirit of gratitude. And so I think when you think about the fact
Mm.
that at some point, and I even tell Soups this, at some point, this is the job that you prayed for. It is. And so we want to make sure and be mindful of that.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Because we're so focused, but we forget, yeah, to that gratitude for what we have
Mhm.
achieved. But I really like that's going to stick with me for a while. That to be grateful for what you have, because there's other people that wish that was where they
Mhm.
were. And I
Right.
love that thought because like having good mentors yourself, you became a good mentor yourself and
Mhm.
are helping people realize to move to those levels. And to me, that's really what leadership is just helping everyone kind of maximize their potential and
Oh, yeah.
and fulfill their purpose. Like you said, we all have a purpose. And when we can figure out what it is and what it'll take for us to get there, it's so important to have people along the way to help us. So that's man, that's a powerful word. Thank you for sharing that. When you think about your role, what do you think is the most important, maybe one or two things as a leader that you do with your staff, or maybe when you were a principal with your teachers that really helped you build like that sense of community and trust and teamwork?
Well, there's several, and I've seen you do it, and my other colleagues do it. Number one, communication is so important,
Mm.
and so no matter what role I'm in, no matter literally, I was very blessed to be raised by my grandparents, very blessed to be raised in rural America, very blessed to be able to take some of the skills that I learned from, how you treat your neighbor, how you treat your people, how you communicate. And so it's never been about a position for me. It's always been about the work. And so I think
Mm,
it's really important that we make everyone understand what their value is. And so my grandmother said it best, and you'll recognize it, but where there's unity, there is strength. And
mm,
so no matter what goal that we're trying to achieve or what direction we're trying to go, it's so much more effective if we have everybody who's rowing in the same direction and address the silos. And that only happens through authentic and communication that is often had. And so I pride myself on building like a collaborative team and making sure that everyone understands that while this is my position, this is also my passion and my purpose. And it's going to take all of us to make sure that we, manifest the hopes, dreams, and aspirations for the children that we serve. So I think being a great communicator, as it happens all the time, and it's not intentional. Sometimes when we get to a position, we don't want to take time to speak, and we're always in a hurry. And what I always try to do is to be present. And so even though I'm in a hurry, even though I got 100 things on my calendar, for somebody, it's their first time meeting me. So I had campus visits earlier today, and I knew that we had to move some meetings around because some bad weather is coming, and so my calendar all of a sudden became tight. But I also knew that because of the number of campuses we have, that I won't get back to this campus for some time, and so I had to acknowledge the fact that I may not, while I'm in a hurry, there was someone on my way out who wanted to take a picture or
right.
wanted to hug, and I wouldn't dare speed the time up because for somebody it's their first time meeting me, or they have something they want to say, they want to feel seen, they want to feel heard, and we have to make sure that that happens. So as a leader, talk about going into a new department, if you go new campus, new school district, it's so important to be mindful of how you show up, being present, communicating, and creating that spirit of unity so that you can move the work forward and people don't feel like something's being done to them. It feels like something is being done with them, and we're all in this together.
And I can imagine that that takes some work, especially to try and personalize so much, especially when you have such a large school district
Mhm.
that you really have to think about and put time and effort into something as simple, like you said, as spreading out your time to visit schools.
Right, but you know what? I learned it in small districts. Literally, you learn how because when you're in a small district and everybody knows your name and everyone at the post office, everyone in the local restaurant, everyone everywhere knows who you are because they either taught you or raised you. It's the best preparation for how you treat people, how you acknowledge people, how you communicate with people. And I didn't lose that. I may be in a large district, I may be in the inner city now, but I didn't lose who I am. I'm just a country girl at heart, and I
Mm,
love people, I love the work. And so I haven't allowed the position to change who I am at the core. And I think that's really important.
yeah, that's so true. And I guess there is a difference when we think about the community. In a small community, you're a part of it, everyone knows you, you can't get away from it. Being in a larger district now, how do you, because we know the importance of connecting the community's part, should be not seamless, but there should be great interaction between community and school. So in a district that large, and I'm sure large industry and things like that, how do you, and maybe this is something you can share that might help another superintendent, how do you build that relationship with the community?
And I'm telling you, every day, like every day in every way. And so, and it boils down to communication again. I have a bi-weekly newsletter that goes out, and it has everything in there. And my comms team and I have gone back and forth because it's exhaustive. Like it's everything that's happened in the week, what's happening in the district. It's a letter from me, and of course, my pictures in it and all of the different things. And I know, like during COVID, I had colleagues who did videos, and I never really embraced the videos portion. So the writing piece, including as many pictures as I can, was was a priority. And so in that newsletter, it goes out every other week. And I'll never forget, I was at a graduation for our parent university participants. And I was so excited because many of my parents who speak English, they knew who I was from the picture. And they told me, I read your newsletter. And it just warmed my heart. And so I was telling the college people, see, they love the newsletter. And it's not just about the newsletter. Many will in Texas, they kind of make fun because, I'm the social media soup as well. And so I remember when I was in Cold Spring, Texas, small town, we had 1,700 kids. We were one of the first districts to embrace Facebook in 2008.
Oh,
And the reason why we did it is because we only had a weekly newspaper. And in that weekly newspaper, we had to share with a rival school district that was also in our county. And so we used social media to get the word out about the great things that were happening in Cold Spring, Texas, small town America. And so, but I've used social media intentionally so that I could build a rapport with the community, with parents. And you have to use multiple types of communication for sure. But I'll use it also to show like our commonalities and that connects with people. I talk about, or I share things about my daughter. I share things about my husband. I share who I am. I share our hopes, dreams, and aspirations for their children, as well as for our district as a whole. And that helps build community as well. And so I think any way that my soup colleagues or principal colleagues or anybody who's in a position of leadership in education, communicating as often and as many modalities as you possibly can is going to be incredibly important because it helps demystify the position. And you can talk about the work in a way that hopefully resonates with all.
yeah. And I love that you talked about making an effort to even share personal, because that humanizes you to them. You're not just the head of the school system, but they see you as a person. I think that's a great way to connect, and probably an important way that some may not have thought about doing. I mean, some may have the newsletters, but they may not have thought about, I need to be a little bit more personal so they see me more, humanized to connect with. So that's very powerful. And I agree with you. I think social media, and we were talking earlier before we started about it can be good or bad based on what you're looking for.
That's right.
But it really is a great communication tool to reach the masses, to reach the parents, to reach the community.
It is
That
my
is
comp
so.
team. They do not like that I'm so out there. And I mean, there have been a couple of things, but for the most part, people respect boundaries. And I've had a couple that went over the board, and I was able to work through those different ones. And but the thing that my team doesn't like is the fact that if anybody contacts me and shares anything, like I can't respond to every single thing, but if they inbox me or do anything, like I don't respond, but I on the app, but I do respond to the information. So I screenshot it, send it to the appropriate person. The appropriate person calls them. So everyone who contacts me via email or inboxes me on social media, there's going to be a response, although it's not a written response per se. And so it's been very helpful, and it hasn't been overboard because you'd rather get people's questions answered, because I think that's the problem. A lot of times we don't tell our story in public education, so we don't share all the great things that are happening. And in addition, we don't share when we can when someone has a question or a concern, or we don't share when we should when someone has
Mhm.
a question or concern. So I think, like you said, social media can be positive, but you got to be intentional with it.
So true. And I like the point you said too about making sure you respond to everything and get your message out. Because I'm always telling, administrators, regardless of the level, if you're not telling your story, a
Mhm.
story will be told, but it probably won't be flattering.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. They should tweet that one. If you're not telling your story, a story will be told. So
Yeah, and the only time usually we hear from people, it's negative things, so that's what's
right,
going to spread. Just
right.
that one interaction is what's going to spread. So yeah, it's so important to to share our story and to get that message out that you're trying to. And again, yeah, that just comes back to communication, which is
Mhm.
so powerful. So now being over such a big district, time management, I know is, if you're not good at it, you probably had to learn how to be. But I think that also shows the importance of hiring the right people and getting people in
Oh,
place and trusting them to do their job too. I would imagine in that, you know, we always, I talk about people that micromanage, but it would be hard to micromanage in a, a large district. You would wear yourself out. So I think that, hiring the right people and getting them in and trusting them has to be a big part of your process.
listen, I think that you alluded to what makes leaders successful. I think hiring the right person, no matter what, is relative, whether it's a small district where one or two people is all you get to hire. So you've got to make sure you hire the best because otherwise it's going to be pressing. And then in a large district, because you're getting things done through people, is as important. And so people is where I think leaders get their power. If you hire well, then of course I think that it surely helps you to get to accomplish the goals. And so what I love though is although I at the larger school district you can't micromanage because it's too much. But what I do love is the fact that because of my experience in the small school district, being responsible for so many different things, everything, I know enough about everything to be dangerous. Like literally, I could ask a lot of questions because I was responsible for it. I know when I first would transition to this area, I was asked a lot. I came from a small district of 1,700 when I was a super in Cold Spring. I was there for 5 years. Then I eventually went to East Texas, Lufkin, Texas, and was a soup there for 5 years, and we had like 8,500 kids. And so when I was named soup here in Aldine, which is located in Houston, Texas, with 60 some thousand, like 67,000 kids at the time, they were like, "Whoa, you came from a small school district. How are you going to be able to do this?" I'm like, "Whoa, small school district prepared me to do this. I have enough knowledge about all the details because it's not like if you're at a small school, there's some tasks you don't have to do. You have to do everything." And
Hmm.
so when you've done everything, you know enough about everything to ask the right questions, which helps you to hire the right people. To your point earlier, that you have to get things done through people. Because, at a small school district, if I want to go visit every campus, in Cold Spring, I could do it in the morning, visit all 5 campuses. In Lufkin, if I wanted to visit all 15 or 16 campuses at the time, it would take me a day and a half. And then here, of course, with over 80 campuses, it takes quite a while. And so my point is that it's just getting things done through people that's tough. So I could see it quicker in a smaller district if what I said here resonated in the levels. And so it's so important to your point that you have good people at each of those levels so that we can get the work done.
Yeah, that's so true. With your time and everything, and I like to ask leaders this because most say they don't do a very good job of it, but how do you take time? Because we know the importance of self care and taking care of ourselves. But I know a lot of people in leadership roles tend to almost be like a workaholics and aren't very good at it. But what do you do? And how do you set that example for your staff of taking care of yourself?
See, I don't do it well. I'll be honest with you. I mentioned earlier, I feel very fortunate to be able to serve in the capacity that I get to serve in education. I love it. I know what it's meant to me. I know what it's meant for my family. And I also know what it means perhaps to my ancestors. I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandparents, they worked hard and they modeled that. My grandmother, of course, worked as a domestic. She cleaned houses, and I saw her do that for over 40 years. Like my whole life, that's what she did. She had a fifth grade education. And my grandpa, Pawpaw, he had a third grade education, and he wrote his name with an X, and he mowed lawns and did dumpster diving uh, whole life. So they taught me hard work for
Mm,
nothing. Like literally, the amount of money they made was nothing. But my grandmother, my grandpa never missed. They always worked hard and they never complained. And so to be able to do the job that we get to do as educators. And even when it's tough as a superintendent, you have 7 bosses. Even when it's tough, it's not as tough as when my grandmother had to do cleaning toilets, and my
Mm,
grandpa had to do dumpster diving to find aluminum cans so that we can sell it and have food on the table. And so so to answer your question, I go hard. I go hard, and I've done it at the sacrifice of family and even sometimes at the expense of knowing that I need to balance. And so I know my grandmother had high blood pressure and was diabetic. Grandpa ended up having a heart attack, and so they both lived good lives in which they have taught me the value of hard work, took care of their families, but they lived hard lives. And so
mm,
as I'm transitioning and becoming middle age, self care has become more apparent. Post COVID, self care has become more of a necessity, and so it's more top of mind. So it's not where I start. It's not naturally where I start. Like, oh, I need to, to breathe. I need to take care of myself. I need to think. And so in my earlier years in education, starting year 25 in education, and this is literally year 17 as a superintendent. And so these have been hard years. And so now, today, in the last year, in January, I chose joy as my one word for the year. And I also have been intentional about self care and taking care of myself, meaning I'm working out, I'm eating better, making better choices, choosing to not work and protect my space as far as time on the weekends,
mm.
also spending more time with my family. My daughter graduated from in 2022. That's crazy. 2022. And so she's a rising junior at my alma mater, Sam Houston State University.
Oh,
So really
okay.
proud of her. She plans to be an educator. And so we went to Disney. I mean, like we're doing impromptu trips and spending time with family. And so to your question, it self-care, balance, little I can't write the chapter on it. What I can tell you is I can give you the cliff notes on the necessity of
I think I'm like you as we hit. Well, I'm sure I'm older than you, but it's like, yeah, it gets where you have to. You have
it.
to slow down a little and take care of yourself. It's just, you don't recover as fast and can't just keep going. So I think it is important, especially for leaders, if you're well rested. And, it doesn't have to be extreme things. I think just, for getting enough sleep each night, just that
Yes.
routine of, the making sure we're eating meals and, drinking the water and things like that. So
Drinking your
that,
water, drink your water, drink your water.
I think those little things help too, just to,
Yeah.
keep us focused and going. So now if you had, well, first I want to ask you. So you have so many accolades and Superintendent of the Year awards and stuff, and I know you probably don't want to brag about them, but what do you feel like helped you model the type of leader that attracted you to those awards? And I don't know if that's
You
the
know,
right way to say it, but
it is crazy. Like I didn't wake up one day and decide I want to be a superintendent. Never even dreamed, not in my wildest dreams, did I ever think that I would be a superintendent. And of course, I didn't think I would receive the number of awards that I've received. But I recognize that I feel like that education leadership is definitely my calling. It was sparked by the fact that I had a special needs son who
Mm,
was born with several, he was mentally and physically challenged, and he lived to be 19, and we actually buried him in 2019. And so
mm,
when he was born in 1999, I was a first year teacher, and I basically had a choice to make as far as, it was tough because our first child, I was living what I thought was the American dream. I had the house, the brick house. I had, the picket fence. I had a great husband, driving a Yukon. So we had all the things. And then our first child was born significantly challenged, and we had to get all kinds of medical and all kinds of things. And so I'm in my first year teaching, And it was tough. It was tough. It was tough. It was tough because there was no rhyme or reason or no medical reason for it, that he was born with all these challenges and he would never walk, he would never talk, he would never be able to do any of the things that I had dreamed of him doing as I was
Mm.
thinking about what my American dream looked like living. And so, long story short, I made a choice. One day, I had to make a choice. I was either going to go crazy and be on Zoloft or one of those other food altering drugs that would help me get through the day, or I need to take my mind off of what wasn't I had no control over and think about the things that I did. And thankfully, I was surrounded by great educators and great leaders. And so I went back to school. I literally went back to school to get a master's and eventually a doctorate. And I know that had my son not been born with special needs, I would have never done any of those things. Because I love being a cheer sponsor. I love being a eighth grade language arts teacher. I would still be a teacher in the classroom and would be loving every moment of it if my child had been born normal. But because he wasn't, it pushed me to do something different. And so
Mm.
I say that the most that anyone should do, you shouldn't strive for the position. I mean, you should prepare. So when you have an opportunity to interview and you're sitting in that seat, that you outshine anyone else to get it. But you shouldn't strive for the position. You shouldn't strive for the awards because they'll find you. But I think that when you show up as your authentic self, when you think about and you're true to who you are and you don't make deals with the devil, as I would call it, meaning that you're a negative force, meaning cut other people down, cut other people off, and think you're better than. But when you are really truly committed to the work and you're striving to do good work for the right reasons with the right people, all those other things, all those other things that they just come to you. They just come. And so I'm thankful for the ones that have come. I'm thankful for the teams that I've been able to good fortune to work with. I've worked for great school boards. I've worked with some of the most exceptional leaders throughout this country. I've learned from leaders throughout this country. So I'm a continuous learner. But I do believe that when you do good work, that you'll receive the rewards. It's sort of like, as my grandmother would say, you reap what you sow. And so,
Mm.
if it becomes about the award of the position, then you've already lost because then it's just not going to stick. But if you continue to do good work and your light's just going to shine and people are gonna notice.
Yeah, I love that you said that it'll find you. You don't have to look if you're just doing what you're supposed to do and doing it to the best of your ability. I love that. So, if you had one piece of advice to give a new leader, or maybe even a veteran leader, or someone wanting to move into a leadership role, or maybe, like you said, hesitating or thinking about moving up to the next level, what would be one nugget of wisdom that you would share with them?
It's going to come off as more than one, but I say it all the time. Actually, wrote a chapter about it for George Couros. But add, subtract, and multiply. Add value to others. Just add value wherever you are and whatever position you're in. Add value there. Just continue to add value, and then subtract the negativity because
Mm.
literally, it's show me a negative person living a positive life and I will give you my next paycheck. It just doesn't happen. Negative people don't live positive lives. So subtract
Right.
negativity and then multiply hope. I mean,
Mm.
there's so much happening in this world. Post COVID is a totally different paradigm, but people want to feel hope. I was born in despair, and so I think it's so important that we lead in a way that shines a light on what's possible with hope. And so I would tell any leader to add value, subtract negativity, and multiply hope.
Oh, I love that. That is so true. Because I always do the add value because appreciate means to add value to something. So, appreciating others and add value, but I like the subtract the negativity because you're right. Yeah, I've never seen a, a person that was negative that yeah was that had gratitude or was that really effective. So that's so true. Powerful. Yeah, I love that. Subtract the negative and then multiply hope. You're so right. It's so important. And that's, I did during COVID when I wrote that little the relationships before rigor.
Mhm.
Grace Before
Oh, it was
Grades,
so
Patience
good.
Before
Yeah.
Program, Love Before Lessons. And that's really what it was about too, is just, when even in tough times, just, you got to stay focused on the positive and have hope and just, keep doing the best you can and focusing on people. It's somebody shared with me that regardless of our roles and our titles, at the end of the day, when we turn off the light, we're just humans again. And I thought that
That's
was
right.
pretty neat, to think of it that way. So, but I love your servant heart and all that you've done, what you're doing. You're just, I'm sure you're an inspiration to many, many people and probably more than you ever will realize. But I definitely think, like you said, you're living in your purpose. So I appreciate you taking the time today. I do have one last question for you because this is called Lattes and Leaders. So, what is your hot beverage of choice?
Oh, that's an easy one. I'm telling you, I love Starbucks. I love a caramel macchiato, tall,
Okay.
because
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I do one that's called a chai latte, but I like the caramel macchiato too. So, but I like coffee sometimes, but I love the Starbucks one. Do what?
you drink it hot? Because they always say, "Do you want this hot or iced?" And I'm like, "There's no other way other than hot." But my daughter, she drinks iced coffee.
Yeah, no, I do the hot. I do the hot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's inspiration.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on today and sharing. And I would love to have you back on sometime too.
Absolutely,
But
absolutely. I would love to.
but yeah, thank you for taking the time and just sharing your story. And I know that it'll be uplifting to everybody that hears it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Brad. Y'all have a great day.
This has been Lattes and Leaders with Dr. Brad Johnson. We hope that you leave today feeling informed and inspired. For more educational content, be sure to add this podcast to your list and follow Dr. Johnson on any and all social media platforms. For more information on Dr. Johnson, Jeremy Johnson, and special guests, check out drbradjohnson.com. That is DOCTOR, bradjohnson.com. Hope to have you back soon.